What's going on, y'all? It's Monty back with another episode of Mondays with Monty, and I want to just jump right into it because I don't got any updates or anything. What I really wanted to talk about today was that I told y'all that I'm going to start doing a lot more relationship content, and I told y'all that I would be using my relationship as collateral to what I'm preaching to all the guys and all the men out there to start doing more in their relationships. And I reached a point where a lot of the stuff that I was preaching, I mean, it wasn't something I spoke on a lot recently. But one thing that I kept in my mind was that I was always very reserved. I was always very passive. I always let a lot of things, either fly over the radar or I let people get over on me and things of that nature. So I tried to flip that as much as I could and be as rigid as I could. And obviously I didn't want to settle right in the extreme of being absolutely rigid. But one thing that I realized is that I'd rather people believe that I'm taking advantage of them than people believe that they can take advantage of me. In the ultimate game of things, I'm not saying I'm out here trying to take advantage of people, but I'd rather be in that position of taking advantage of someone than be in the position of someone taking advantage of me. And I don't think that's really crazy to say. I mean, maybe there's people who don't like the way that's kind of delivered, but that's just the way I feel. So I think that I'd rather be in that position of power because relationships is just a power game. It's a power dynamic. Things are going back and forth and things are changing. So I always want to be in that position of power. But one thing that I realized is that I took it a bit too far. So I'm going to leave out all the details, but me and my girl got into our first disagreement or argument because it wasn't even necessarily an argument because she was in a situation in which I didn't feel comfortable with her being in, right? So she had told me about it. She was fully transparent. She said like she was part of this situation. This is what happened, yada, yada, yada. And I told her, I don't want you to be in that situation again. Next time we're going to need to make some different arrangements. And she was like, okay, like I understand that, I explained my point of view and yada, yada, yada. And then that was kind of the end of it that night because I was upset. I just went to bed, yada. But then she wanted to speak on it again, and I'm glad we spoke on it again because it kind of ended very abruptly and there wasn't necessarily a resolution to the conflict. So she was like, can we speak about it again? And one thing that she mentioned was that she was like, the way you delivered what you said made me feel as if you wanted to manipulate me and wanted it to be like I have to ask permission for certain things. And that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't how I was trying to get it across. But in my head, I'm so stuck in the rigidity thing that I'm like, no, I have to be in complete control of this situation. So it wasn't necessarily me wanting to manipulate anything. But at the same time, she was right with what she said, but also I was thinking of it in a different way because I just wanted to be in entire control of the situation. And one thing I had to understand was that I can't be in control of all situations because she also talked about to the extreme, like she doesn't want the relationship to reach a point where it's like, she's got to ask for permission or something of that nature. And when she said that, I was like, I wouldn't want that either, because we're both individuals. We both have our own lives. But so I agreed with her on that. I was like, I wouldn't want us to be at that point either way. And she was like, yeah, well, the way you delivered what you had said, it made me feel as if, you can't do this because I said so. So I was too rigid in that instant. And it's always going to be about finding the balance between what is too much and what isn't. And clearly I had passed it a little bit, but in the moment, my stubbornness and my frustration with the whole thing, it didn't allow me to give her that softness that she needed, but not like just be like, oh, okay, yada, yada, but just give her that little bit of, okay, yeah, maybe I went too far, and then so I needed some more time because we had another conversation. It seemed resolved, but I was still a little frustrated because I started being short with her, and I took some time. I was watching the game a little bit, but I just kept thinking, and I called her back and I was like, I had more that I wanted to think. I had more that I wanted to say on the thing. And I was like, there are always going to be rules to a relationship. When you get into a relationship with someone, you're never going to have full and complete autonomy. Like there are things and situations that you shouldn't get involved in if you're in a relationship. And that was pretty much what I was trying to say to her, but it wasn't the way I delivered it was that, oh, you can't do this. And another thing that I want to really credit her for was that there was a disconnect in our communication because all I wanted was for her to be putting us first. And I feel like the way that she handled the situation that she was a part of, she wasn't putting us first. But in her mind, she believed that she was putting us first entirely. So it was a disconnect right there. And of course, that's going to happen in relationships. You're not always going to be on the same page. And that's going to look, and being on the same page is going to look different. Being in sync with each other is always going to look different for the two of you, because what you think will be in sync, she might not think is in sync. And what you think is in sync, yada, yada, yada. So she thought she was in sync. I know she wasn't. She thought she wasn't on the line. And I also didn't think she was out of line for what she did. She actually did handle the situation correctly. I just didn't like the situation that she was a part of. It had nothing to do with anything that she did per se. It was just the situation that she was a part of. And that was part of me being too rigid, because I was like, I didn't really think about the fact that she didn't do anything wrong. She was just a part of an unfortunate situation, and a situation that made me uncomfortable. But she didn't do anything. She took every precaution necessary in hopes that I wouldn't be uncomfortable with the situation. But I was clouded in my mind, and I was like, no, like this, you cannot be in this situation again. Like this can't happen. So it was really eye-opening for me that I had to be like, I was in that moment, I was too rigid. I didn't have the awareness of scaling back the rigidity and being a bit more soft, and allowing a little more cohesiveness between the two of us, and not allowing our communication to break. So I really want to congratulate her, because she kind of forced me to be more open about it, because she even mentioned it. She was like, I feel like you kind of just shut down and closed off, and that's what I do in typical situations like that. So I had to I had to throw away some of my pride, because I really like to just be like, oh, I'm going to sit with these feelings. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to stay here. But it really forced me to throw away my pride and say, you know what? Yeah, there's a give and take here. Like I'm overexerting. I'm overexerting myself, and I need to scale it back. So I think what I want to say is that if you would ever take the path that I'm taking and go to that point of extreme rigidity where you're trying to stay in control of everything, just understand that you can't. It's good to be rigid about some things, and it's better to, I'd rather err on the side of rigidity than I would on the side of being very passive and letting things go past me, like I said in the beginning. But there are instances where you need to relinquish some of that, not a lot of it, because then things can just pile up and build up, but you need to relinquish some of that. You can't always have this, you know what I mean? And there's not everything that you can be able to control. And also another thing I want to talk about is like, yo, you gotta talk to your partner, dog. You gotta talk to him, because that's why so many things can end up into getting bigger than they should. Because one thing she mentioned, she was like, in my family, we have arguments and we never really come to a resolution. So the fact that we never come to a resolution means that later on down the line, someone else brings it back up when things get heated again. And I don't want that to happen with us. And I was like, I completely agree. Like, I want us to resolve these conflicts. And that in order for that to happen, and in order for that to occur, I needed to throw away some of my pride and just be like, all right, let's figure out a solution to this. Let's figure out how things can get better. And I'm very glad we did it. That moment really increased my belief that like this girl is a great woman for me. You know what I said? It's really like endorsed the feelings that I have, and it really made me realize like, damn, this is a good relationship to be in. And yeah, I don't know what else to really say, but I think I hope someone can understand what the majority of the story that I was trying to get to is right now. You know, like what the overall arching message is like sometimes there's a lot of key themes, key points that you can take from this. Like you got to throw away your pride. You can't be too rigid, but you also still have to be rigid and stand firm in what you believe. But sometimes it's too much. So I appreciate y'all for listening to me. I know this kind of dragged on a little bit, but I don't even think I'm going to have to like edit this or chop it or anything. I'm just going to have to find parts that I just want to put into the thing. But yeah, man, that's the message for today. So I appreciate y'all listening to me. I appreciate y'all rocking with me, and I'll talk to y'all soon. All right. Happy Monday.
Yeah. This what happens when you fall in love. I was calling cuz and saying, cuz I think I found the one. And cuz already married, he was happy that I found me some. But that was back in January, girl, that's when we just begun. Was telling Nana to be ready for the wedding, even though she really might not be here for the wedding.